Hi, it's Mich, and welcome to Daily Reflections. Today we'll talk about my one of my experiences as an entrepreneur, and especially when to look at the fine prints. So, I'm usually the type of person that doesn't read all the details in the contract, especially if it's like a contract for my cell phone or equally unimportant things. But I've learned my lesson, especially when signing a contract for a loan. It goes back a couple of years. I had a startup. We had a varied investment mixture and used different vehicles. And one of that was a sort of private loan or a bank loan, which we got for our company. And lucky us, that loan was supported by close to the government organization that, if you would fail to pay it back, would cover the expenses. So we thought. We signed that contract very early on in at our when we started our venture. It was about around 50K, and over time we got other amounts of investments from different sources, and we at some point even, I think, started paying it back because we had kind of a cliff in between, a period that we wouldn't have to pay it back and only make the installations at some point later in time. And then one day, as I've already told before, we didn't make it anymore. Unluckily, we had to shut everything down. And at the end of our venture, we ended up with a couple of loans and other investments that the company wasn't able to pay back anymore. And one of that was the 50K loan we signed at the very beginning and got at the very beginning. And although we also signed for it privately as uh, like a private person, we didn't anticipate that at some point we would actually have to pay that back from our own pockets. But it turned out it was very, it was lovely because I think it was around Christmas, New Year came, and then 3 days after, it was the 3rd of January, I received that letter from our bank that we, as the company, had to file for insolvency. We should pay back the 50K within a period of 2 weeks. At that point, as we've been running a startup for quite some time, and we didn't pay ourselves huge loads of money and or wages, and although we put our own money into it, more or less all of it, we didn't necessarily have those 50K available on our bank account. Long story short, we found an agreement with our bank, and we set up a repayment plan that would last for 2 years, because we wanted it to be done fairly quickly, and that meant installments of little over 2,000, 2 grand per month, which is quite hefty. Nevertheless, we managed to pay it back, and during that time, especially at the very beginning, we were naturally wondering why we would have to pay it back after all, as we had the understanding from way earlier that if we wouldn't be able to do that, that that organization would cover the cost. And what we didn't know, because we didn't read the fine print, was that the organization would cover the cost, but only if you as a person uh, are not able to pay it back, which was quite a bummer, and that taught me, especially in times and circumstances when there's a lot at stake, when there's a lot of money involved, and when the decision is hard to reverse, then in a nutshell, when the risk is high, you better read the imprint. So yeah, over the years after that, I again learned my lesson, and nowadays, again, still not for the unimportant topics, but in the circumstances described before, I really take my time, eventually consult the lawyer to explain to me what it really means and what's the risk involved for me. And if I'm still okay with that risk, I can still do it. If I'm not, then I better not. We managed to come out of it fairly well, but it wasn't the nicest experience I ever had. So, if you're next time signing a loan for 50K or any other amount that means a lot to you, then you better read the fine print or have somebody explain it to you. I'm telling you from experience, it pays off. Literally. It was my pleasure. See you again next time. Take care.